I think if there's a general theme for the thinking triad there, or the thinking quad for me, but then just as you asked, Brendan, I really wanted to tease them apart. So input is about the acquisition or the gathering. The learning is about the consumption or the act of incorporating. And then the intellection is the expansion or the deep thoughts, deep conversations. You want to light me up like a Christmas tree? Say I'm putting an invite on your calendar to pick your brain for 30 minutes.
Hello and welcome back to Coach. Today we are talking about the strength of intellection. I have Caroline Day and Dave Taylor with me today. They are the experts on intellection, and we're going to jump right in. Caroline, if you could tell the listeners where you're calling in from or coming in from today and your top 5 strengths, and if you want to add a little bit about what you're up to, please feel free.
Awesome. So my name is Caroline. As you said, I am based in St. Paul, Minnesota. I have a top 5 of input, learner, intellection, number 3, deliberative, and individualization. I think in my coaching practice, one of the things I encourage people to do is develop a story about their top 5. So here's my quick story about my top 5. Input, no surprise to you, number 1 inputters, I buy a book or many books. Number 2, learner, I read or digest the book. Number 3, intellection, I have deep thoughts or deep conversations with a small group of others about what I read to expand. Deliberative, then I need to turn it into a workshop. And I very carefully time box to make sure I have not too much, not too little, but just enough, kind of like Goldilocks, just enough content and activity. And then my individualization, I riff on a theme and I develop similar workshops for different groups, different types, virtual, in person. So that's me in a nutshell through my top 5.
Thanks, Caroline. Appreciate that. Dave, coming to you.
Caroline, I didn't catch where you're coming from.
St. Paul, Minnesota.
St. Paul, Minnesota, the Twin Cities. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Been there once for a Josh Groban concert. That's a story for another time. So I'm Dave Taylor. What's interesting, what I love about what Caroline said was that we share 3 of our top 5 strengths and the first 2 in that order. So I am number 1, input. Number 2, learner. Number 3 is a relationship theme, connectedness. Number 4 is intellection. And number 5 is responsibility. So I lead and have done so my entire life from the theme of strategic thinking. So with that, golly, I'm coming from Southwest Virginia, incidentally, a little town. I'll work out until you hear some familiar names. I live in a town called Endicott, which is close to Ferrum, which is close to Rocky Mount, Virginia, not North Carolina. And if you hadn't heard of that, then Roanoke. Roanoke is about an hour away. Blacksburg is about an hour away. A lot of people know Virginia Tech. And I love how you presented that with the story. And if I were to do the same, I hadn't prepared that, but if I were to do the same, I'd think about the crazy path that my career has taken, largely because I just couldn't resist taking deeper dives in this or that or the other. And so starting out with degrees in physics and math and working in the space program in the Air Force, when I retired there, I did a hard left and followed a call in ministry and was a bivocational pastor, have been for the last 25 years. And, that's a very different thing from the rocket science and physics and math and all of that. And now I do coach, still bivocational. I coach. Clifton Strengths, the global strengths certification was my first, but have along the way, as I'm sure, Caroline, you can relate, picked up other credentials because it's just fun. I don't know if that's learner or intellection or sabotaged by both, but that's my story, Brendan.
So since you both lead with 3 of the same, we're going to just isolate first intellection, and then I'd love to hear both of you describe what has been called the big 3, the intellectual set, the nerd set. No, I'm just kidding. The studious set, right? So typically, if you're going to see one or two of intellection input learner, you're going to find the trio, if not top five, top 10. And interestingly enough, I just did input recently, and relatively speaking, both had that set. So let's start with just an unpacking of intellection. And Dave, I'll come back to you for this. You could just talk me through this strength by itself, how you relate to it, how it shows up, how you engage with it.
I'll tell you how I think the first time it showed up in a strong way when I was cognizant of it. And that was 25 years ago when I entered seminary, and I really hadn't been called to ministry at that point. I just knew that I wanted to help in the church that I was attending at the time, help the pastor grow the church. And so there was a great program in what was a Baptist seminary. And of course, that's interesting because I come from a Wesleyan background. And so I kind of brokered a deal with every one of the professors where there was a research paper involved. I said, can I approach this from the Wesleyan perspective? And they all, with much grace, said, absolutely, so long as you can demonstrate that you understand what we're trying to convey here. And for me, that was an intellectual playground because I could look at both positions. I could dive in, take that deep dive. And I've kind of always thought, and I guess I've heard it somewhere, that the ability to hold contradictory opinions is one measure of intelligence. And I do that. I do try to look at other people's positions, look at other, competing philosophies and say, okay, what's the both and here? What are we really getting at? And not really trying to discern what's the hill worth dying on. And we realize that a lot are not.
Sure. Before I knew what intellection was, prior to having taken my first Clifton Strengths assessment in 2000, I was always a reader and a deep thinker. And I think it was in high school I probably realized I was an introvert. Now, interestingly, I facilitate for a living as well. So I'm an introvert, but I'm an introvert who's not socially awkward.
That's good. I'm an extrovert who's socially awkward. So there you go.
Are any not?
I don't know.
So for me, the combination of deep thought, deep thinking, a lot of reading, being an introvert, I remember thinking in graduate school, gosh, I don't love the homework, but I love the beginning of each semester and looking forward to getting to know my fellow class participants and where they're coming from and what they're doing and how they're thinking. And for me, it was just a panacea at the beginning of every semester. And so I think for me, intellection really came about when I put my assessment together with my life experience that says, oh, that's what you call it. Okay. I wish I'd had that back in high school, college, grad school, to understand that there were other people like me.
And Caroline, that's what I love and has made me passionate about getting strengths out there. I look back over my career and even as a kid, and I think, well, all of these things that I wish I had known because, whether it's name it, claim it, name it, or anything else, if I'd known, I would have settled into that so much more comfortably.
So I want to encourage you both because given the trio that you share, input, learner, intellection, for many of our users, I think finding a way to distinguish between these, and Caroline, you helped us well with your story at the front end, but as you see them together, the way they function, the way they're a power set. The late great Kurt Liesfeld used to talk about strengths packages, and he would talk about the combinations of different strengths and what they would do. He had clever names for them. So this academic set, as he would call it, he often put context somewhere with them. Curious how you both, and however you want to take that. And then as you're progressing, to encourage you as you look at the other strengths, because you have some interesting variants there as we look at Dave's responsibility, connectedness, your deliberative, individualization, Caroline, and just start to help our readers just to connect in. And because you share 3 of the same 5, go ahead and lift the lid if you want to jump down 6 or 10 and take us into just a little bit more of the nuance of how intellection will have variance based on other strengths it's connecting with for you. And I'm going to just, either one of you can take that prompt.
So I will just say that in my adult life, in my working career, I've spent 20 years with my current employer. My last 5 leaders all had activator in their top 5. And I am strongly biased for thinking. So input, learner, intellection. And then I include deliberative as a quasi-thinking theme because I execute, but after great care and removing obstacles, right? So there's a lot of thought in deliberative. So I'll claim strategic thinking as a dominant domain. And I really work pretty hard any given day to meet my action biased leaders in a way that doesn't irritate their sensibilities, but respects mine. And I think there's something that we often call powerful partnerships, where I have to really actively, with most of my leaders, develop that trust-based, value-based relationship to say, sometimes I need you to speed me up a little bit. Sometimes I need to be able to slow you down a little bit. We both make better decisions over time together than either of us could separately. So I think if there's a general theme for the thinking triad there, or the thinking quad for me, but then I just as you asked, Brendan, I really wanted to tease them apart. So input is about the acquisition or the gathering. The learning is about the consumption or the act of incorporating. And then the intellection is the expansion or the deep thoughts, deep conversations. So I love, you want to light me up like a Christmas tree, say I'm putting an invite on your calendar to pick your brain for 30 minutes. I'm like, ooh, all kinds of fun.
That's great. Well, as you can imagine, Caroline, I can relate to all of that. When I think about the 3, that triad together, each one independently can be a saboteur to getting things done, right? You can say, I want to, however you want to characterize it, polish the rock or admire the problem. And we need something to counterbalance that. But when you got all 3 coming at you, then, oh my, it can be overwhelming. I've looked at each of the 3 and characterized them this way, that learner is like my intake valve, and there's plenty out there to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm 66 right now, and I'm getting ready to enroll in the masterful coaching program at George Mason. So you just can't stop. That could be a saboteur, right? So learner is my intake valve. Intellection is that internal processor where I can do something with that stuff. It says, give me more, always give me more, and sit with this, right? But then input, and that being my number 1, yours also, is the one that can really kind of bury you. When we made this move 4 years ago to Southwest Virginia, I had to give away about 1,000 books. No small number. And I've still got 2,000 crammed in different places.
You and I have very similar experiences there.
Yeah. So input is like the archive, and the 3 together, intake valve, internal processor, archive. If I think about them that way systemically, then they kind of make sense. But the counterbalance for me, the first one is probably my number 5, which is responsibility. And that is probably the most important among them, that, it's the kick in the seat of the pants that says, hey, the client's not paying for me to just think about this. They're paying because they want answers. And so I do rely on responsibility a lot. And connectiveness, now this may be a little bit, Brandon may cut this out of this episode, but
give it a try, Dave. Give it a try. Try me.
So Brandon, I listened to your the podcast. I love this series, by the way. Thank you. No one's thanked you lately. Thank you for pulling this together. And I listened to the connectiveness, and both of your folks said, well, this is, everything happens for a reason. Well, I think that the fact that some of my pet peeves are bumper sticker theology that doesn't go deep. I mean, I'll tell my congregation this all. Well, my pet peeve is, everything happens for a reason. And I almost entitled a sermon once, Everything Happens for a Reason. Sometimes it's because you're stupid and make bad decisions. But I thought better of it and said, no, I can't do that. But I really think, there's a lot behind that. So with connectedness, I'd probably only loosely agree with the everything happens for a reason, and maybe turn it around and say there can be meaning found in everything that happens. And that's probably intellection overlaying on connectedness.
What if the people you coach could navigate their total health and performance with the same ease as using Google Maps? Our friends at Wellbeing at Work help organizations turn fragmented programs and frustrated employees into thriving, high-performing teams. Wellbeing at Work acts as a GPS to enable total health and peak performance, pinpointing where your people are now, where they want to go, and the best path to get there. With Wellbeing at Work, coaches become credentialed navigators with personalized insights, proven tools, and human-centered support. If you're a coach committed to performance and care, Wellbeing at Work is your path forward. Navigating at scale from burnout to breakthrough is now possible. Visit podcast.34strong.com to find a better way forward to empower a healthier, more energized workforce. Again, that's podcast.34strong.com, Wellbeing at Work.
Now, if we want to go 6 through 10, Dave, I have connectedness at number 10, but I have relator, achiever, maximizer, empathy, connectedness. So I claim a dual dominance of thinker, relator, or a thinker relationship. And I actually have a team. So I lead a leadership development program, and my team is dual dominance of relationship and execution. So it is so interesting to see me and my team very relationally focused for consistency, but they're usually driving me. I say I have a couple of border collies on my team. That they keep me in line, they keep me going in the direction that we need to go, probably a little faster than I might otherwise be going. But I love the fact that we're doing so with thought, we're doing so with execution, but we're doing so maintaining, growing, nurturing, sustaining the relationships. My team gets a lot done through relationships. So,
well, let me respond to that dual strategic theme in a moment. But I first want to say, I know the theology of strength says none are good or better or worse than others, right? They just are. It's our DNA. It's our makeup. But still, I'll say I envy you for having empathy up there. I get so annoyed that I don't have empathy, and I feel as though I ought to. And I try to get that through others. But when you listed your other 5 in your top 10, none of them paired with mine. Mine are number 6 is achiever. Number 7 is belief. Number 8 is self-assurance, which I understand is one of those more rare to have. Number 9 is analytical, which as a physicist I thought should have been number 1, but okay, this is why I wish I had known this before I started college, right? And number 10, includer. And I absolutely get that. I do cast a net, want to bring people in, and that's part of connectedness. I love in connectedness the idea of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. The first time Brandon and I talked, it was 1 degree. He said something about, well, I'm preparing for a mission trip. And I said, oh, I went on a mission trip just recently. Let's do one together. And I think that's one of my superpowers, given that that's, number 3 and number 10 maybe together. So the dual strategic themes for me are strategic thinking and the executing. And so I tend to be that border collie on my teams. And I have to pair with people who are a little more relational than I am to keep it family. If I could tease that out a little more, just one quick story. My last job in industry full time, I was the program manager for a fairly large contract supporting a DoD client, and I specifically recruited someone, again going against the everything is equal, but I knew I needed someone as my deputy who was more attuned to the people, someone who could come up to me and say, "Hey, tomorrow's Melissa's birthday. Be sure to say something." You're right. Why didn't that occur to me? And it was a beautiful partnership that we had for like the last 5 years of our working together. So that to me is part of the power of the teaming and considering strengths.
Dave, staying on your top 10, I'm curious how your intellection, which does appreciate time, does appreciate depth, does appreciate the ability to really unpack and process and give yourself time to ruminate. But then there's the responsibility achiever. And from experience, being a high achiever, working with many people with these strengths, there's an internal pressure with those strengths. They call to you, to your commitment, to your list, to your projects. So how do you know, and how do you manage those seemingly opposite forces inside of you?
That has been a work in progress, and I will tell you the metaphors can be powerful, particularly in coaching. And one that I've shared with people who share this challenge is the surfer. Borrowing from positive intelligence, the idea that the controller is a saboteur that wants to have things his or her own way. And when you think about,
I know that paradigm well, and I know that saboteur well.
yeah, achievers do, right? And you just want to control the situation, but you cannot control every situation. And regardless of your spiritual makeup, you can just put it out there and say, listen, the universe is going to take care of this. And, whether it's Christianity or something else, you just got to hold loosely those things that you have a propensity to really grasp tight. That surfer metaphor, for anybody that hasn't heard that, is that if you're trying to surf a wave, you catch that wave, and if you're looking at the point on the border, on the shoreline, and you say, I'm just going to go on that point, you're going to wipe out right away. You've got to move and with the rhythm and the move of the wave in order to get the hang 10 experience. And so that's what I've been focused on. And it has been a great question, Brandon, because it has been an intentional, as you can probably see, I'm lit up on this. I have to think about that a lot. Okay, just let's see where the wave will take me.
Yeah, I would imagine the achiever responsibility want to take time from the intellection. The intellection's over here going, hey, I'm not done yet. I'm still thinking. Back off. Tone down. And I love the paradigm of positive intelligence, because as you name saboteurs, you name what's doing that, and the harsh criticism we give to self in our negativity bias, and being able to recognize I do need that time to process. It is part of how I am at my best. And our friends with intellection, allowing others to respect that space, because Caroline, when you mentioned 5 activators in your past, I wanted to break in and apologize on behalf of all of us activator leaders to acknowledge that we have one go, and it's now, and it's move, and it's our only thing we understand is action. And to my intellection friends that I've worked with, I've had to come to this very deep and respectful appreciation that they are at their best with time. They give the very best of who they are. They present some of the deepest, most profound answers to problems, bring forth questions we haven't even thought about yet, the look out ahead that the whole team needs. And it's for those of you with high intellection, it's a respect to that process, to that place that you require. So Carolyn, I was very curious about this piece, just because the relationship building, once we got below 5, it's strong with you. It's a really strong, and I don't know how common intellection sits by. Later, I've seen it more, but when you got to empathy, connectedness, I mean, I felt like, wow, those are strengths that have such a heart to them. There's a softness, there's an interest, there's a place, and so does that mean that your intellection thinks about those people? It's processing, it's thinking about relationship, or it engages with? Very curious how you engage with those.
I think the way that I might encapsulate it showing up is I'm a firm believer that coaches need coaches. And so having been coached by a particularly wonderful
We're
individual
we're all
doctor.
we're all we're nodding with you when you said that. We were both we were both going, yes. You have three right now, Dave?
Three fellow coaches, and we do mutual coaching just because we recognize that we need it. And we'd be charlatans if we were telling the world that everybody needs a coach except us, right?
I
So
was impressed because I have three coaches. Well, actually, I just ended a term with one, but I three different areas that I work with a coach on. So wow, it's fascinating. Okay.
I think my work with Dr. George in particular brought out a brand statement that I have a way of reducing career level, eliminating hierarchy, and elegantly simplifying people's psyches with them and for them. So my version of that before I met Dr. George was I love to introduce people to themselves at a deeper level. It's my greatest joy. So it's by nature very relational. And I want to get to know you and you to get to know yourself at a deeper level so that you can be more effective. So for me, it's just kind of the overall experience.
Very cool.
I think I do something similar, Caroline. I I love that phrase that you said, introducing people to themselves on a deeper level. I characterize my coaching as both strengths based and values based. And I do spend a lot of time teasing out values. And I've had many cases where when people who've come to me for coaching are looking at moving in through a transformation or a transition, then say, well, let's start with what's important. And when we start teasing out those values, that's when the epiphanies happen. And one just recent was a physician that I've been working with in the VA, Veterans Administration. And she just thoroughly enjoys things that she's not currently doing or has the time to do. And so now she's in a process of just rearranging her life to be able to do things like go to museums more, do a little more travel, do a little more of crafty kind of things. And there were even things that she cited that were important to her on behalf of the community, what this world needs, if you will, and trying to move her, let's call it altruistic decisions on how she will spend her time, shifting them that way to do things that she thinks she loves and that the world needs and she's good at. So, hey, let's do that. So that's how it's shown up with me, similar to you. And it's that same result that you described in a very pithy remark, introduce people to themselves in a newer way. Forgive the rambling here.
As you both talk more about this, I have two strengths for each of you that I'm curious about. So intellection with deliberative. So I've found many times that when given the opportunity to do what intellection does best, really think through, process, consider what it is that it's interested in, that it's solving, that it's contemplating, that I've often found my team members come back with either great questions or solutions. Very adept at that. How does deliberative support or impact that, positive or otherwise, for you, Caroline?
So my best explanation for how deliberative shows up for me, and I've seen this on social media with memes, is Well, if I have to be there at 12, that means I have to leave at 11:30, which means I have to get out of bed at 10 and eat my breakfast by. So I start with the end game and I work backward and I make sure it fits so that I can deliver what I need to deliver in a way that I want to deliver it. And then my maximizer at number 8 wants not only to just deliver, but wants to hit a home run. So I think my deliberative is constantly cycling backward and or removing obstacles to being able to execute what I want to execute well. So it does tend to balance my intellection a bit because I want to do something carefully with thought and with excellence. So I'll add the maximizer in there as well. So it can tend to speed me up. It gets me into a process.
You know how we start our coaching business on a high, only to get absolutely overwhelmed by the business side of things? We're suddenly supposed to be a full-time salesperson, marketing funnel maker, email marketing expert, social media manager, customer service rep, and tech expert all in one. Yeah, overwhelm. Well, Lisa Cummings, our strengths coach friend, created a membership that gives you an insane member vault that will blow your mind. All the tools, systems, and templates to save you time and money. It's the actual assets Lisa used at Lead Through Strengths to build a successful strengths coaching business. All the assets are yours to customize and make your very own. She even gives you 2 years worth of emails you can use to serve your customers. So check it out at podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths. Again, podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths from Lisa Cummings. So that was the other side, right? So the deliberative can slow, maximizer wants to move things ahead. So you went right where the second strength. I was curious how that maximizer affects that intellection, because similar to the pressure I was describing today with achiever responsibility, my maximizer never gives up a day. It's relentless on we can do more, we can be better, we can go further. And there's a different pressure that one builds where intellection seems to thrive when it can. I don't know if you both would say you have a release valve for that time when you think, that time when you can process, but there seems to be a measure of peace surrounding or finding a tranquility there. You can inform me, but how does that sit there with that maximizer?
The maximizer, to your point, Brandon, does not give me a lot of peace. They talk about responsibility and achiever, always having the whisper of discontent. I would say maximizer is also, I'm never satisfied. If I don't, after delivering a workshop, have people following on either after the fact virtually or walking up to me after the fact in person, to me, that's not my home run that I was looking for. I want the out of the park home run every time. And so my maximizer can be a tough one to satisfy. My deliberative, I can live in my deliberative. That's my details. That's my over processing. That's my polishing. But the maximizer is a hard one to fully satisfy. The intellection will bring some peace in that I can be expansive. Maximizer's like, all right, now how are you going to package that up?
So would it be fair to say that I lead with maximizer, so I'm always feeling the pressure you're describing? Fair to say that for a maximizer is intrusive to intellection then. So if intellection is trying to think, trying to process, does maximizer want to stick its head out there and go, yeah, but about that workshop we did, or about that session, or that can it be that voice of discontent that can take from that intellection space?
Or it can dampen. Between my deliberative and maximizer, I can kill a brainstorming session really fast. What about? How are you going to? And how is that going to land? So I can be the voice of practicality, where a brainstorming or a design thinking session is meant to evoke ideas and the art of the possible. I'm like, oh, that's hard. That's a hard space for me to live in.
Interesting. So Dave, jumping over to your 7 and 8, I understand the anchor that belief is and the values that it it holds and the strength that it has to stay constant, steady. And as a high belief myself, I can understand there are times where belief can limit. It can actually hold back because it can get caught in its own sense of, well, to your point earlier about high IQ can hold different contrary opinions and, decide very, very few, if any, hills are worth dying on. Very, very few, if any. And so yet belief thinks there are many hills to die on. Belief can get stuck in that at times. And I'm curious how, belief, relates to intellection or supports, or intellection leads it or supports. How do you see those two connecting for you?
What a wonderful question. I think I want to go back to the idea of values, understanding values, and peeling those layers back, for the sake of what? What is it that you're trying to accomplish here? And I think about, again, this world of ministry, and just acknowledge that there are how many thousands, not dozens, but thousands of Christian denominations just within Christianity. Are people falling on their swords for their beliefs? Well, as a matter of fact, some are. And it is incredibly damaging both to the body of believers, of Christians, but also to those on the outside who are witnessing that. And so I think, Brandon, what I will do is resolve those some with going back to responsibility. What's my responsibility here? Is it to make the very best and deepest argument, which with intellection I could do and maybe blow someone away? Or is it to say, extending grace? And that's just one of many ways. Empathy, which Caroline has and I don't, but I work on it. But understanding what's really important here. I got to tell you, it's a hot button for me that you're touching on, because within my family, there are folks who are almost of the opinion that if you don't believe this, you must not be a Christian. And I want to say, where in the creeds do you see that? That's your interpretation. That's someone else's interpretation. But what are we all here for? And I don't know. Did I beat around the bush too much?
No, I think you answered it as I would expect. And I think what our listeners are hearing is intellection in process. Because I think part of our process that I understand with when I talk to people about intellection is the journey can be the destination, the thinking, because some queries don't have immediate answers. They require more thought. They require more process. And that's what is your strength, is that you do so well at removing layers of thought and then coming back to the start as often as necessary. And I think that's the depth of this. So as we're rounding our time today, for both of you, thank you so much for coming and helping to bring such wisdom from your strengths. I really deeply appreciate how you helped with the thinking three. You both really helped us define that. You gave such great examples. Caroline's top 5 story for our listeners. What a great way to think about your strengths, to take your top 5, put it into a narrative so it's quick, it's easy, people connect to it. Caroline, thank you for that. That was really helpful. But even understanding the way you two brought us down to the top 10, and we got to get into power partnerships, thinking about how thing dynamics, different strengths, even within that dominant set, remembering that our dominant strengths can go as high as 12 to 15. I mean, these are strengths that are pulled in, used every day, and some will have more intensity than their number indicates on the list, because that list was a moment in time. You don't live in a moment, you live in dynamic. You're vibrant. But some of these strengths, and maybe you two can relate to this, they're so core to who we are that when we trace the line back through our days, we see it as far back as we can remember. We see that evidence of these patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving that have colored our whole lives up till now. And so, Dave, you reminded us of the power of learning our strengths, even at young and emerging ages. And so for our listeners hearing today, if you want to give a great gift to a young person in your life, Give them the gift of learning their strengths, start them young, help them to start identifying with terms that will help define things they can know about themselves that will in fact give them more confidence, will in fact give them a sense of self and direction for future thinking and future planning.
Brandon, that's actually biblical. Proverbs tells us, bring up a child in the way he or she will go, and he will not depart from it.
I'll tell you what, I live by that, because that emphasis on the way that person should go, not the way you think they should go. It's the way designed for them. And that shaped a lot of my parenting after that revelation. So, Caroline, I'm going to come to you as we wrap up. Can you tell folks where they might be able to find you if they want to connect with you, and what you're up to, and maybe a way that if they wanted to work with you, how that might happen?
Well, I am an internal coach, or a corporate coach, if you will, but I work for Accenture. So Caroline.day, DEY, at Accenture.com. Happy to speak with you. I was actually part of the 2025 Coach Learning Series this year with Jillian White as a keynote speaker. So you can hear a little bit more about my journey, about Accenture's journey with strengths. And I can talk a blue streak. So you'll light me up like a Christmas tree if you put time on my calendar.
Thank you, Caroline. Appreciate you being here. And Dave, how about you?
Folks can reach me at my email, which is dave@nextsummitadvisors.com. And my website is nextsummitadvisors.com. And I've got a small cadre of friends and coaches that you could even pick from. If I'm not your cup of tea, but someone else is, it's an easy way to get to us.
Awesome. To our listeners, if you found great value from today's episode, we encourage you to share it with someone who might gain value. These two experts brought us through strengths in a masterful way, and definitely an episode that I think many people would benefit from, but especially our high intellection friends that might enjoy learning from what we covered today. And as always, we will see you next time on Coach to Coach.
That's a wrap on this episode of Coach to Coach. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're a strengths coach looking to dive deeper, join the Coach Strong community. It's where coaches like you come together to share insights, support one another, and discover partnership opportunities. Be part of the conversations that are elevating our industry. Email community@34strong.com to join today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Coach to Coach. Stay strong.